Hi, everyone. Sorry for that delay, but thank you so much for joining us. I'm Stephanie Curry, Public Policy Manager with Family Policy Alliance, and we're presenting a special video today with Christina Bennett, the Communications Director for the Family Institute of Connecticut. Today is the 48th anniversary of Roe v. Wade, which is certainly nothing to celebrate. And Christina and I thought, what better time to have a conversation about the insidious racism in pro-abortion policies and why it's important now more than ever to keep the Hyde Amendment. Welcome, Christina. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, can you tell us about why this issue matters to you personally?
Absolutely. I was born in 1981, and that was years, not too many years, a few years after Roe versus Wade became legal. And I was born to a woman, my mother, who was not married, and she was pressured by my father to have an abortion. I didn't know this until many years later in my 20s when I was going to college, but my mother was pressured to have an abortion. She was going to a church at the time, so she went to talk to her mentor, told her mentor she was pregnant, and was really looking for some kind of help or compassion. Unfortunately, her mentor told her, if you come back to this church, I'll be the first person to put my foot in the door and not let you in. So she was rejected, she felt alone, and she went to have an abortion at Mount Sinai Hospital in Hartford, Connecticut. Miraculously, there was an African-American janitor who was mopping the floor who saw her right before she was supposed to have her abortion. She saw her crying in the hallway. She went up to her and said, "Do you want to have this baby?" My mother said yes, even though she'd already paid for the abortion and she was actually even in the white hospital gown. But she still said yes, and she had the courage to get her stuff, and she was about to leave, and then the doctor called her name. She went into his office, and he hadn't even cleaned up the blood from the last abortion. There was blood on the floor. She was disgusted, and she said, "I'm leaving. I'm keeping my baby." And he got angry at her and said, "No, you've already paid for this. You're just nervous. You're going to go through with it." And she continued to be strong. She was encouraged by the words of that janitor, and she said, "No, I'm keeping my baby," and she walked out. But she kept that a secret for a long time. In fact, I think the only way I was able to find out was because God wanted me to know. I was at church, and when I was older, and someone approached me and said, "God wants you to know something remarkable happened around the time of your birth." Someone just felt that on their heart to tell me that God had told them that about my life. And I asked my mom, and she wouldn't tell me at first. She said, "I met an angel before you were born, but I can't talk to you about it," which I thought was very strange. But then later on, when I asked her a few months later, "Can you please tell me, did anything happen, before or around my birth that was special or unique?" She told me that she'd scheduled to abort me and that God intervened and saved my life at the last moment.
Wow, Christina, that is amazing.
Yes.
That is just, I'm blown away. I just love the story of redemption and restoration that God has put into your life, but also that He put that angel in her life to tell her that, she has a choice and life matters. And I'm so thankful she chose life and love. And you're
Yeah,
here today.
me too. And now we live 5 minutes from each other. She lives 5 minutes down the road from me.
Well, that it's clear to me why this would be an issue that's close and special to your heart. And, you have done a lot to testify to protect the Hyde Amendment. And the Hyde Amendment bars federal funds from being used to pay for abortions unless it's necessary to save the life of the mother in cases of incest or rape. But we're having this conversation because people like you and I don't believe that our tax dollars should be going to fund abortion, and certainly not abortion with a racist agenda. Do you think that your mother was targeted in some ways to abort you?
I definitely know that she was pressured. And I would say that all Black women have been targeted since 1973 because of the fact that, over 75% of abortion clinics are located in lower income minority neighborhoods. And that that hospital was in an abortion clinic, but that hospital is also in a neighborhood like that. And just in general, from the marketing and from the media and from what people have heard since Roe became legal, that it's just a clump of tissues, it's just a blob of cells, that it's a woman's right. All of that is targeting. All of that is false messaging. All of that is causing women to think that having an abortion is just a medical procedure and nothing else. And so I definitely feel that she felt the impact of that. And if she had lived in a different type of a world or society, I don't think she would have ever even gone to get an abortion.
That's so true. I agree that Black women are absolutely targeted, Black and brown women, women of color. Yes. I saw an article just this morning titled that Black women want an end to Hyde. That's likely not very true. And this argument is that the argument pro-abortionists make is that Hyde harms women of color because women of color are in desperate need of state-sponsored abortions through Medicaid funding. Well, I want to address a couple of things here. First, twice as many white women are enrolled in Medicaid as Black and brown women. So why is the narrative that preventing public funding to Medicaid harms Black and brown women the most? This perpetuates the myth that Medicaid rolls are dominated by people of color, which isn't true. That's a lie. But it also highlights the intentional targeting of Black women, which brings me to the second thing. Why is it that Black women are so vehemently targeted and encouraged to abort our babies that we can't be trusted to raise our children or make loving decisions on their behalf? And I have an adoption story. I don't know my birth mother's history, if anyone pressured her into having an abortion, but I'm adopted. And my birth mother was unfortunately addicted to drugs, but she loved my twin and I enough to give birth to us in a hospital and give us up for adoption. And so in my eyes, she chose love, she chose life. But pro-abortionists would have been shouting from the rooftops that it was an injustice for my birth mother to give birth. She was living in a garage. She was addicted to drugs. She was older. There were so many reasons. We were her 9th and 10th children. There were so many reasons why pro-abortionists today would have been pressuring her, coercing her to get an abortion. But I thank God that she chose love. And I don't even think, I don't think even, I was thinking about it this morning. I was like, I don't think the most optimistic person would have looked at my birth mother and the fact she was about to deliver twins and thought that there could be a good outcome in life for my sister and I. But my twin and I, we flourished in life. We were adopted by a loving, amazing, awesome, my family, and we were given a second chance, and here we are today, and no one could have predicted that. And so birth mothers, our Black mothers, can be trusted to make choices that are right and good for their children. We can be trusted to provide stable environments, good education, or give them up for adoption to the hands of another loving family. Those are loving choices that can be made. And I don't think there's anything compassionate or altruistic about the left telling Black women that we can't raise our children. And there's a word for that, and I say that that word is genocide. There's no prosperity in society. There's no success. There's no hope when a government advocates for the elimination of children of a certain skin color. And we're seeing that all over. So you testified before Congress urging them to protect the Hyde Amendment. And pro-abortionists talked in a very perverse way about trusting Black women. Can you tell us a little bit more about how they've twisted this concept of trust?
Absolutely. One of the things that I mentioned when I testified before members of Congress regarding the Hyde Amendment was that many women are coerced into having abortions. Unfortunately, that was denied by some pro-abortion congressmen and women. They denied that reality, but it is a reality. If you talk to women who have had abortions or considering abortions, they will tell you their parents pressured them, their boyfriend pressured them, and sometimes they even felt the pressure from teachers or just different bosses, people in society. And so the women who were on the panel with me the ones that support abortion, they were saying things like, we need to trust Black women. To them, that means that we need to allow women to make whatever reproductive choices they want to make, and we don't have to worry about it. We need to mind our own business, basically. But when we understand that women are pressured, when we understand that women are making decisions sometimes because they feel like they have to in order to keep their job, or they feel like they have to in order to keep their relationship, then we know that we need to intervene and give truth. Along with that, many women don't know that an abortion is going to bring them physical, emotional harm. Many women don't know that an abortion is ending the life of an innocent child. Sometimes they do believe the lies that it's just tissue, or that if they abort early enough that it's not going to cause the baby pain. So there's so much information that they are not getting, and they need to know that in order to make an educated decision. I remember I worked as a pregnancy counselor and as a client service manager at a pregnancy resource center for 4 years. And I would talk to women who were having abortions, or they were thinking about having abortions. And they would say things like, yeah, I went over to Planned Parenthood and they didn't tell me anything. I didn't get any information. I remember one woman, she'd had an abortion and then she was thinking about another one, and she was coming to talk to us about it. And I said, well, what happened last time? Were you told about, the side effects or, possible complications? And she said, no. She wasn't told anything. And so Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry, they keep women in the dark. They withhold information from them. They don't want them to see their ultrasound. They don't want them to know what's going on inside of the womb. And then they say, oh, yes, you should trust them. No, we should help women to know exactly what the abortion procedure is going to do to them, do to their child, and let them know how harmful it is so they can decide. And honestly, it shouldn't even be legal in the first place. They shouldn't even have to make that kind of a decision. Our government should make it for them, in the sense that they protect them from the lies of the abortion industry by valuing and defending and protecting unborn lives.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And we've gotten a couple comments about people saying that Planned Parenthood is in urban areas and locations, and you already mentioned this statistic. I've seen a statistic that Planned Parenthood is in 80% of their surgical abortion clinics are in Black and brown communities. And so that targeting continues today, and it comes from this insidious racist history and foundings of Planned Parenthood and its founder, which was literally founded to eliminate certain types of people, including people of color. So can you tell us more about Planned Parenthood's abhorrently racist history?
Sure, absolutely. This is actually the first time in many years that Planned Parenthood is starting to admit that they have not only a racist history, but that they're currently performing racist acts by aborting so many Black and brown children. But this is the first time that they've been willing to admit that. If you just go on the news, even a quick Google search will show you that Planned Parenthood of Greater New York, they have changed the name of their building. Their building was called the Margaret Sanger abortion clinic in Greater New York, and they changed it because they want to distance themselves from Margaret Sanger. Now, why would they want to do that? It's because Margaret Sanger has this huge history of being eugenicist, pushing forced sterilization, of having a Negro project in which she specifically targeted Black ministers, and she paid them and convinced them to go out into the community and to push birth control. Now, the reason she did that was because this was in the 1930s and abortion wasn't legal, and she knew it wouldn't be legal probably for a while. And so she started with birth control, and her desire was to exterminate the Negro population. Her desire was to decrease their population. And unfortunately, she did have some Black writers and elite Black individuals who were deceived into thinking that she was helping the Black community. And so they signed, along with her, they joined in this mission with her because they were deceived by her false pretense that she was there to help the Black community, but she wasn't. In fact, right. If you listen to any of her, there's not a lot of video. There's a couple of interviews, but if you read her writings, because I think that's where really the bulk of what she said can be found. If you read her books, you will see that she was against charity, that she had an issue with the Catholic Church, that she was constantly fighting people that had religious beliefs, whether they're Protestant or Catholic, that she had a lot of anger because of her own mom having, multiple children, and that really bothered her. And so she was fueled by this bitterness and by this anger to try to reduce the population of those that she felt were undesirable. She talked about Black people like weeds that should be pulled out of the ground, people with disabilities, people that were sick, that society should rid themselves of these people through birth control and later through abortion. And I think even by today's standards, if you read Margaret Sanger's words, you'll be shocked, because it's a lot more than I can even say.
Right. I'm so glad you went into detail about the racist history of Planned Parenthood and its founder. And many people don't know that even Hitler admired the eugenics movements that Margaret Sanger had a huge part in, and took several pages from the book of Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood, formerly known as the American Birth Control League. And so we've been down the road of eugenics. We've been down the road of using birth control and abortion to eliminate certain populations and people groups. And it doesn't end well. It's a horrendous, horrific thing where the world suffers when our people, our children, are eliminated. And so it is absolutely a disgrace for some of our congressmen to even consider withdrawing the Hyde Amendment, eliminating it or weakening its protections. We shouldn't be funding abortion to begin with. And it certainly doesn't make it any better that some people want to funnel those monies into vulnerable communities to ensure that we can't raise and support the next generation of children. And that's not care. That's not a choice. Genocide is not a choice. And so if you agree with us on this, please click on the link in the comments. We have an action alert, a letter you can send to your congressman, your Congress representative today, urging them to protect the Hyde Amendment, urging them to ensure that we have the ability to continue to protect the next generation of children. And just to say that this is a winning battle. Most Americans are pro-life, and many Americans don't know the history of Planned Parenthood. They're not aware of the targeting of women of color and people of color, and certainly vulnerable populations like the poor and people who have disabilities. And so we are pro-life, and we want to protect all people from conception to natural death. We want to protect you, and we want to support your life. And that's what we do as a movement. That's what we do as Family Policy Alliance. That's what you do in Connecticut with the Family Institute of Connecticut, is we work on these policies to protect children. Did you want to say more about what kinds of things we do, pro-life things that we do?
Sure. I mean, just in general, the pro-life movement, today is the anniversary of Roe versus Wade, the tragic anniversary. And one of the things I shared on my own personal social media was just that being pro-life has to be more than a position that you hold. People say to you, are you pro-life? Yes, I am pro-life. No, I'm not pro-life. Well, it has to be more than a position that you hold. It has to be an action that you take. And there's so many ways to get involved in the pro-life movement. One of the things that we do in Connecticut is we're protecting pregnancy resource centers. Unfortunately, they are under attack in the state of Connecticut, and even across the country, they're under attack. We saw what happened in California, where pregnancy resource centers were forced by the state to give out abortion information to women that were entering looking for help. Now, thankfully, because of President Trump's 2 Supreme Court justices, in the case Nitla versus Becerra, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of pregnancy resource centers in California and said they did not have to give out abortion information, but they're still under attack. So at the Family Institute of Connecticut, we are fighting for these pregnancy centers. There's legislation right now in our government that is trying to accuse them of false advertising and trying to say that they are manipulating and hurting women. And the state of Connecticut wants to control their advertising and fine them money and punish them if they say things that the state doesn't like. And we're in a pro-abortion state with pro-abortion legislators. And so it is a horrible attack on their free speech rights, but it's happening right now as we speak. And so we are protecting the pregnancy centers. We are getting ready to testify virtually against this legislation. And that's one way that you can get involved is, volunteering at a pregnancy center, or even if you're in a state like mine and they're under attack, protecting them, speaking out, testifying on their behalf. And there's so many other ways that you can get involved. But the most important thing is that you do something, because unborn lives are dying every single day, and it can't be just a position that we hold. We have to take action.
That is excellent. I love that quote, Christina. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes, please get involved today. Take action. Click on the link in the comments. Get out and volunteer. And you can also reach out to your state representatives and urge them to do what they can to ensure that federal funds stay out of the abortion industry. And we also want to be supporting adoption agencies as well, private adoption agencies, and ensuring that families have options and we make it easier for families to be able to adopt children, not harder. And so you can also urge your state legislators to protect private adoption agencies. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. This was a fantastic conversation, and God bless your weekend.